All right. I have a topic that I have brought up in other shows, not a lot. I love the salvational issue topics when it comes to theology within the Bible and that type of thing. And I've told different stories of people that I've talked to, even Jewish people that are interested in what we believe and find it hard to conceive of certain things that we take maybe a little bit too far. And so my question this week was, what if the Bible didn't say anything at all from Genesis to Revelation? I almost have to leave out Revelation, but didn't say anything at all about what happens to us after we die. Now, the big push on evangelism, and I've been a part of several different evangelism organizations back in the day, back in the Christian walk day, Christian lifestyle day, of where we used to say, like I used to do hellfire and damnation preaching, and that's where a lot of my questions come from. Is that we would go to the book of, I think it's Jude, that says save some by fear. Our Bible said save everybody by fear. If you don't repent today, you're going to hell tomorrow. And it's always been the most prevalent thing in evangelizing, and especially in talking to just people in general. I mean, now we don't do a whole lot of street evangelism. Paul Neeson is one of the very few messianics that literally goes and stands out on the corner of big cities with a microphone and an amplifier and preaches the gospel. He preaches the Torah gospel. A lot, has for years now. But we have very few messianics that do. But once again, if we didn't have that part to enter into our talk with people, and bringing it around to the subject of salvation, and why a person should spend their time with God or make a commitment to God, if we don't use that part of you need to repent today because you might be going to hell tomorrow, part of it, then what is it that actually we should be doing for people, or saying to people, if we didn't have that to use in our evangelistic spiel? Let's put it that way. And I know, Daryl, you're very opinionated about this. I've heard your take on this without even asking that question before. Very interested in it. So anyway, my take on it, and I want to give mine here so we can kind of take it from that point of view also, is that I had a Jewish lady tell me that, God made the heavens and God made the earth. God put the life that's in me, and because of that alone, we serve God. And literally, when she told me this has been 20 some years ago that I heard her tell me this. It literally changed my perspective on that. It literally is that other side of the coin, rather than to make the hell and the heaven an issue at all. So, and I agree with that to a certain point. Is that I serve God because He's God. I serve God because He put the life that's in me, and that's that's how I serve my Lord. And then, of course, when I die, I don't worry about what's going to happen to me when I die. I just know I'm taken care of. So I'd like to get your point of view on this, Mulaney? Do you mind going first?
Not at all. Not at all. As you were speaking, I was just remembering when we were in Peterborough, I joined this homeschool group, and it was a mixed group. It's people with different beliefs and convictions, and we're in there. And
not legal convictions.
Yeah, not that. Anyway.
I get what you're saying. Sure.
Spiritual conviction. And I was witnessing to a dad because he overheard me witnessing to another lady about God. And he says, why do you people always have to bring God in this? Whenever you don't have an answer to something, you say God did it. And I said to him, well, but because God exists and God did do everything. He said, well, how can you prove God exists? I said, look around you. All this exists. And I recently we were listening to Michael Lake, who said mathematicians have been calculating, and the probability of this, everything being a chance or random is mathematically a lot smaller than this being actually a designed world, like everything being designed. So either way you put it, scientifically, mathematically, there's no coincidence. It's all designed. The world, we are designed, everything, life, everything's designed. And this is how God revealed himself to me. And I have science background, so God showed me that he is the one who, makes everything continue working. And I was actually just finished my devotions in Job. And when God was talking about, to Job about, well, I'm the one who created everything. Where were you when I did this, I did. And, God makes the water, cycle and just life to be sustained. And I thought, wow, what God said to Job is what God said to me to convince me that he exists and get me out of having my faith in science and having my faith in him. And so, yes, the proof is that the world does exist. The proof is that somebody did design it. And how sad it is for people to think that they're just a coincidence. How do you feel like you're a coincidence? Do you think that you don't matter? Like, we all have a sense that we have a purpose. We have value, absolutely. And for us to embrace beliefs that it's all coincidence and there's no God who created us, it contradicts. Like, it doesn't make sense. So I often use, look around you, all this is functioning. Yes, I mean, the people have messed up the world, but it was supposed to be functioning in harmony all together. So, even if we don't know what happens, we know that there's all these theories out there. The aliens brought us all the knowledge from distant planets, and why? I mean, it takes so much more faith to believe all these other theories than just embrace the fact that there is a God.
Good point.
God who created everything, the God. And so our purpose in life is to really get to know who that God is, how he designed us. Lately, I've been having some ladies' meetings where the ladies consult crystals to bring whatever energy their way, or they call themselves goddesses, and it's all this stuff. Yeah. And I'm thinking, and they and what I'm finding, that there's a lot of people are getting into depression. That people are, depression is quite prevalent nowadays in our society because people don't have God to believe in. They don't have God to guide them. And so they have to think of these philosophies to get themselves out of it. In the meantime, God can cure all these things, all these, us falling into these kind of states, only if we embrace that. So no, you don't have to look at Revelation to realize that you're a child of God, that is important, that God created you. And all you have to do is have a relationship with your Father who created you. So that's how I approach it. Really.
Very good. Very good. I like it. I like it a lot. Very good. Well, Mr. Weinberg.
I've heard the argument from Orthodox Jewish people about, yes, we serve God because he's God and everything else. I don't buy it. Because Paul says that if Messiah didn't rise from the dead, then we above all are to be pitied. The whole death question is integral to our faith, because why else would we give up everything in this world and become a point of mockery if we weren't going to be? This life is, David says it's a vapor. Here today, gone tomorrow.
It is.
Eternity is a lot longer time. And it was my fear of the lake of fire of hell that led me to faith. So I don't think you can give an honest depiction of the gospel if you're not talking about what's to come. Because, especially for either Jews or Muslims, where you're asking them to give up a lot, if there's no eternal reward, then what really is the point? If soul annihilation is the end of it all, then you know what? We might as well party like it's 1999. It's, why bother going through all the misery if there isn't the promise of an eternal reward? And why go through all the misery if not turning away from that doesn't lead me to a horrendous... I'll tell you something. It's my visions of hell, and I'm not talking about that I get visions, but what I picture in my mind, the description of hell and what it's going to be like, it's what drives me to do what I do. It's what drives me to go and share the gospel with people who I know aren't. I did street evangelism in New York City 3 months before 9/11. I stood on the corner of some Orthodox neighborhoods in Brooklyn and didn't get some very positive responses from some people.
I'm sure.
You want to stretch your boundaries, then do street evangelism to Jews in New York, and you'll find out what persecution really is.
I'm sure.
So for me, the whole question about what happens after we die, because that's everybody's deep down, that's what everybody fears the most.
I was 5 years old when I first asked that question.
Yeah.
Growing up in a communist country where nobody talked about God, and somehow I knew there was death around me. And as a child, I was just thinking, well, what happens when all these people die? Where do they go? Like, you can't help but ask that question. And when I asked that question, I remember that's when I had my first dreams from God, who was answering, because there was no human being there to answer those. And he was showing me the separation of body and soul and all. I think everyone, because God created us all, he communicates with us. And that was before I even really believed. I know God has spoken to me before I even believed. So when you face people with the truth of the Bible, the truth of who God is, I know it resonates in there. They could try to deny it. I mean, that's their option and choice. But even if it's like hell, like even if it's something that is offensive, because we've been told by a Jewish man before, well, it's offensive to me for you to say that if I don't believe in your God, I'm going to hell. Sorry, I'd rather, Daryl and I both believe we'd rather offend you now than warn you of what is waiting for you.
Whether you find it offensive or not does not make it not true.
Of course, sure.
I'm always mystified where people think that they get to determine what's truth and what's not just because of what they do.
But we are to balance God's love and goodness with what happened, and it's all a choice. And it's like Naaman. I'm just thinking of Naaman, who was asked to bathe in the river to be healed from, and he wouldn't do it. And even his servant said, "Well, what a big deal it is! Like, why wouldn't you do something so simple?" And it's all pride. Like this is all that stands in the way. Like it's really pride for the cure.
Yeah, and to say that there isn't talk of the afterlife in the Old Covenant, what about all the Psalms? I mean, how many times does David reference Sheol? And
I'm not saying that it's not there. I'm just saying.
I mean, but Jews will tell you that.
He's talking about Jews.
There's no mention.
Oh, yeah, I get it. I get it.
I mean, the only, I think, direct reference to we have of heaven and hell would be in Daniel 12:2, which says that in those days, those who lie asleep in the grave shall be raised, some to everlasting life and some to everlasting shame and contempt. So that's the only, I think, direct reference to what happens to people in the Old Covenant. Now, we do have talk about God being a consuming fire. We do talk about eternal burning, Isaiah 34:13, I believe it is. But the whole idea of, see, death isn't natural, and that's why we fear it. Yeah. We were never meant to die.
I get what you're saying. Sure.
And so this is why people, they either ignore it, it
will never happen to me.
Yeah, they do what ostriches don't even do, which is jam their heads in the sand. Sure. And I think back to when my mother was dying of cancer. She absolutely refused to deal with her impending death. Even a week before she died, she couldn't even walk anymore. And I remember holding on to her as I was kind of hugging her, and I was trying to talk to her about the after. Nope, she wasn't going to deal with it.
So, Mark, are you trying to ask, how do we witness to people without that peace?
No, I'm not asking. Well, I mean, that can be part of it. I'm just, what you guys have said really fit exactly what I'm looking for here. My take on this is that I don't fear death. I don't have a problem with it. I know who I am with God. I know who I am in this world, with my wife, with my family, with my ministry, with God. I know who I am. I have no problem with it at all. I don't question it. I don't question any of these things. My mortality is, in front of my face anymore, since I'm turning 66 next month. I know that my dad lived to be 90, and I would like to live longer than that. I think a lot of it is that I love my life. I love living. I mean, even when the world is in chaos, I still love my life. I still love being here. I still love experiencing all the things that are happening. Some things it makes me cringe, and I get overwhelmed with all the crap that's happening in the world. I do. I get overwhelmed with it. I don't want. I mean, I've been saying since last year. I just turned 65. I don't want any more problems. I just want to kick back and enjoy life now for the rest of my time here on earth. I'm good. But I think that's it, is that I love it so much. I don't even think about what happens to me after I die anymore. It's just not an issue. And I think a lot of times I have talked to people that do have an issue with that, and they have their questions they can't seem to get solved, in that they don't have trust in anybody anymore, especially the church, especially the organized church. There is a lot of non-trust in what's gone before, because they've seen so many negative things happen with the church in the history of the church in the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that they don't have trust anymore. So why should we trust what you say about what happens to us when we die? And so with me having such a love for life, and my love for life is totally based on the fact that the Lord is my commander. The Lord is my God, and I don't know anything else anymore. And because of that, it's really when I talk to somebody, for instance, the lady that lives across the street from us, I mean, not more than a month and a half ago, stood on her porch when I was talking to her about something, and she says, we have already talked about the difference between our lifestyle and their lifestyle. She says, I really want to sit down one-on-one and really talk about this, the difference between what you guys believe and what we believe. And my thought is that, man, if you could just realize who God is, if you could just get a concept of God and get that peace in your life that I have, because I think that's what it is. I have such a peace in my life. If people could just get that, why even be concerned about what happens to you after you die? I don't know what's going to happen to me. I don't know the process. Do I go to Abraham's bosom? Do I go to heaven? Do I instantly get wings? Do I stand on a cloud with Gabriel? I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't care. I really don't care. I have such a peace. If I find out tomorrow that I've got 2 weeks to live, it's almost like I have goosebumps. As a matter of fact, just saying it, I'm getting goosebumps. Just saying it. I don't want to die because I want to be here. I want to be around people. I want to talk to people about God, the whole thing. But see, that's my concept. That's where I come from. And I know not everybody feels that way. But I think what it comes down to is that I just want everybody to have the peace that passes all understanding, like I feel within me. And I think that to me, it has nothing to do with what happens to me when I die. So I'm interested. I don't disagree with what either one of you said at all. I think it is a very personal understanding. I think it's a personal decision that each one of us makes about that. But I would also like the fact that people should have the option of not having to be concerned about what happens to them after they die, and know God for who God is, what he has done, and what he is going to do in our lives, and let that be it. When I witness to somebody, I will witness that way first. And also, make it a part that, you also get to go spend an eternity with God, after you pass. I don't know. See, that's my deal. I don't know. So, and if somebody can lay it out to me and tell me, okay, when you die, the next minute, you're going to be floating up, and then the next minute, you're going to be standing on this cloud with Gabriel, and this is going to happen. If somebody can line that out to me, I'd say, yeah, sure. Yeah, whatever. But that's the point. That's who I am. So, Daryl's going like,
hey, listen, if that's your focus, I think it's wonderful.
Peace.
And if that's what works for you, and everybody has to be faithful to the message that God has given them.
I agree.
Whether it be for evangelism, whether it be for ministry, whether it be for the business that they start. You know, I was listening at work today with the contractor I work with, and I was listening to one of Mike Lake's messages from about 12 years ago, and he did a series on next level living, and he talks about the core gifts that God gives everybody, skill sets, and he explains the scientific means behind that, and how children learn at a phenomenal rate up until they hit teenagers, and then all of a sudden something happens where
they know everything all of a sudden.
Yeah,
you're right.
And he says there's a scientific reason for that, and he says, aren't you glad? Because they wake up half a foot taller and they grunt, and everybody's got these core areas of specialty. And so whether it be a gifting in business or preaching or music or whatever it might be, we got to be faithful to that. And whatever ministry God has given us, you've been given a ministry to promote other ministries, and you got to be faithful to that. And you've got to do whatever it takes to build this. So if the message that God has given you is live your best life now in God, and if that works, God's going to send you people who that resonates with.
He has, and he is. I agree.
And that's wonderful. And it's not, Paul, even when Paul says in Philippians, where, some men are preaching the gospel out of envy and for gain, he says, well, what's my reaction? I rejoice in that the gospel is being preached. People are still going to get saved regardless of what people's motivation is.
That's right.
God's going to use the televangelists to save people. They may not get to heaven, and if they do, they're certainly not going to get any rewards for what they're doing. But you know what? God is still going to use them.
Yeah.
So we just have to be faithful to whatever God lays upon our hearts and walk in that.
Yep. I agree, brother. I agree. And not take everything for granted and let it go by the wayside. You bet. Wow. Thanks a million for your input. Very good. I had not thought of the design aspect that you came from, Melina. That was really good. I like that. And that actually works for me real well. But very good. I like it. All right. So good. I love your input, everybody. Just what I was looking for.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.